Hi everyone, welcome to Unapologetically You, where today I am doing another session of my book, Happiness Within, a journey of reflection and self-discovery by me, Tulsi. So Kelly and I have agreed that we are ending this season, season 4, with our story time. And this is chapter 2 of what happiness looks like. I remember my stomach churning. I was not sure what to expect. I was dressed as if heading to a business meeting. Heels, aubergine-coloured pencil skirt, black blazer. This was my power play move. Dressing well enabled me to fake the confidence I needed. Parking up my car, I stepped out and felt a little like Elle Woods in Legally Blonde as I walked towards reception. As the door slid open, I introduced myself, and it wasn't until I sat down that it suddenly dawned on me. I was finally here. My dreams were coming true. I was 2 weeks away from starting my role within a 3 times world championship Formula One team. And I was here for an intro tour. It felt as if I was in a bubble, like I was gliding into another big challenge of my life. And I remember thinking to myself, is this what happiness and success feels like? This seemingly perfect time in my life was almost exactly a year before I vowed to change my mindset and approached my well-being and outlook on happiness and success. After starting my dream job, the first few months flew by in what seemed like a smoky haze. Without realizing, I was slowly sinking deeper into a new struggle within my life. The struggle was between balancing working all the hours I could to get ahead and taking care of my personal well-being. During those first few months, I most certainly neglected my personal and social well-being as I blurred the lines between passion and obsession. Sometimes when a person reaches a peak within their life, accomplishing a long-term goal, as I had, striving to get into Formula One, they may think and believe they can finally relax because they finally made it. Made it to the destination they dreamed of being as a child. What real life teaches you is that there is no final destination. There is simply a destination before it all comes new again. This was another new beginning, a new adventure, and another fresh start. When we win at a game of Monopoly, that is it. We start a new game. We start from scratch, and each time we start from the bottom. And that is how I felt when reaching that position in F1. Getting the job was where all my effort had been directed. Now, new challenges developed within each phase that followed. When do we reach a point where we feel we have made it? Reached the success we fought and worked so hard for? Is there a moment we can identify as being successfully happy? I was in F1, and although this brought me joy and happiness because I reached a point in my career where I was in the industry I loved, in my heart, this was not the pinnacle of my success. What I knew for sure was I needed to work harder to find what my next dream was. Getting the role in F1 gave me a huge step in the right direction, but there was something else, something more I needed to pursue. In this phase of my career, I created a new space, which I later discovered would be my home away from home. And I always neglected to be in the present moment and enjoy accomplishments achieved because I quickly refocused my attention and energy onto my next goal. These goals were always written within my 5 to 10 year plan. Having reached a goal to be in F1, I decided to take a different direction, adopt a new strategy, and chose not to create a new 5-year plan. Instead, I chose to take the time to transition and focus on the here and now. My aim was to be present in the moments, be happy and enjoy what was happening around me. I wanted to take it all in and live in the moment. Those moments, however, passed quickly. A series of changes beyond my control forced me to figure out my next move, instead of living in the present moment as I vowed to do. Have you ever been in a position where you outgrew something or someone and you realized you were no longer learning from the situation? Your ambition or passion has faded, or that you simply needed another challenge? Sooner than I had expected, I was forced to move forward and pursue a vision for something bigger. Although it was a necessity, I knew it would not be easy. I tied myself around relationships I created. I valued the new connection I forged, and had freely anchored myself into an environment that allowed me to uncover a new sense of happiness. I'd also found happiness uncovering my personal well-being journey. I'd come to a point where I'd realized happiness included the acquaintances and friends I could rely on. I'd unearthed pleasure through breaking down my own barriers and being vulnerable, and these discoveries have made the decision to move on that much harder. The consistency, income, and routine gave me the security I enjoyed, all the things we are often told to aspire for in life. Yet beneath this security, I was becoming increasingly unhappy with changes happening around me, stifling my creativity, undermining my work, stalling ways in which I could develop as a strength and conditioning coach. These unexpected changes forced me to rethink the direction I could take. And although we are taught that change is good for us, we tend to resist change because we are hindered by fear or because we are challenged within the area called the unknown. Along this journey, I discovered I would often question the consistency within the state of happiness. What I uncovered and how I dealt with it will be explained within later chapters, but a meaningful lesson was understanding that throughout my journey, happiness comes and goes, just like tidal waves from the ocean. Like all thoughts and emotions we experience throughout our day, they come and go as they please. Despite having created moments that made me feel joyful and fulfilled, and although I experienced moments of pure, genuine happiness, I tended to place happiness on things I had accumulated. By this, I don't just mean material goods, but elements such as wonderful friends, building myself a home, finding success in my role as a manager and coach. But now, this was all to change. Where would all my happiness go? Thankfully, at the point where the whole situation was completely taken out of my hands, I developed tools to allow me to move forward. It was the security in knowing I'd created habits that would enable me to feel pure joy and happiness within those moments, that more moments would come throughout events in my life. These crucial habits are discussed in great detail in the middle chapters of this book, but it's important for you to understand that we often can't test the efficacy of these habits until we face unexpected and difficult challenges. You may be aware of the proverb, time flies when you're having fun. Have you ever watched a child playing? If you have not, take a moment to observe a child the next time you are able to watch them play with their favorite toy. Look at their facial expressions, their demeanor, how they are completely absorbed in their own world of imagination. You can see the pure enthusiasm within their facial expressions and concentration. For that moment in time, they are focused, and concentration for that moment. Nothing else matters. Children are not thinking about anything other than being present. They are being fully immersed in their imaginative play. When I gave myself to stop and think about this, it was a similar feeling I'd encountered when I'd be immersed in the moment. If I wasn't doing anything of significance, I imagined it would be the same expression of peace, joy, and happiness within each child playing with their toys. After my friends forced me to reevaluate my approach to work and life, and thank goodness they did, there were moments, particularly at the very beginning of my quest for happiness, I would recall feeling guilty about being happy. Though at that point in my life, those moments felt rare. Instead of being in the moment, I would quickly derail this new train of thought, navigating myself away from that happy moment. Thoughts would creep in and contradict the state of happiness within myself. Suddenly the negativity of all the things I was unhappy about would surge through my thoughts like storm clouds brewing overhead, and I couldn't stop it fast enough. These thoughts would cast grey clouds on my beaming rays of light I'd tried to generate in order to shift my focus on current conditions and challenges at work. Any moment of happiness was drowned in the storm clouds, and my thoughts were taken me away from the present moment into another, reliving the past or worrying about my future. Despite having solitary moments of happiness, my periods of self-reflection drew me back into the state of negativity. I would migrate from being in my happy bubble and move into a small dark room which housed shadows of both my past and unpredictable future. In that room, there was a different part of my character, someone who was extremely stern. She wrote questions on the walls such as, "Why are you so happy? Is this where you really want to be in life? And you don't deserve this." Sentences that would strip away any pleasures in life I'd experienced merely moments before. Within that room housed the pressure I needed to prove myself, and I must earn my success and happiness. I had somehow convinced myself those two nouns were in relationship and were united, leaving me under the impression that there could not be one without the other. Over time, I understood that momentary feelings of happiness are rare but can be created with consistency. The most important lesson about happiness was that it is always in the present, that it doesn't exist when thoughts are navigating into my past or future. When I started to practice being in the moment, my emotions were taken out of the equations, and it was my responsibility to not put any emphasis on new thoughts. My agenda was to allow those thoughts to flow freely like waves in the ocean. What I eventually learned was that it is perfectly fine to be happy in the moment and still have ambitions and goals to better your life. Happiness is a personal and comparative emotion. We tend to measure our levels of happiness by using our experiences and degrees of sadness from our past as a measure to dictate our overall and current state. If you have ever encountered deeper levels of sadness, then there is a chance you will have a higher degree of happiness. There are, of course, some people who do not experience such highs or lows in terms of their levels of happiness. Herein lays the middle ground. Protecting yourself against emotional pain, such as sadness, simultaneously restricts happiness. I always lent into this method to reduce my levels of sadness and limit the depth of my personal relationships. But consequently, this also limited my levels of happiness. Have you ever knowingly put people in a box and prevented them from being too close to you on a personal level? I made this decision to prevent myself from getting hurt. If I could control the level of connection with others, I could prevent myself against any emotional pain. As a result, I would prevent many people from entering my personal and emotional space, and I successfully prevented myself from being hurt by pushing others away or keeping them at a distance. For some, this middle ground can enable relationships to develop quite normally, but when the levels of intimacy become too threatening, those relationships will either fade or die. This middle ground is like a black hole. It prevents any relationship from flourishing and progressing into a deeper connection, and it is common to either intentionally or unintentionally sabotage personal relationships by preventing them from becoming too intimate. The people who are in this middle ground often see themselves as victims and ironically seek comfort in the people they hold at bay. We build walls to protect ourselves from emotional pain. The higher the walls, the greater the degree of emotional pain that has been experienced in the past. Only those who fear getting hurt again will build up higher walls, and they are built for one sole purpose: to keep people out. These walls are purposefully used to defend our personal and emotional space. These barriers can be used to disconnect from a part of the world where we may feel threatened. This disengagement includes happiness. It includes keeping people who may be able to show us happiness at bay. By preventing this level of intimacy, we are blocking ourselves off from a part of our lives and choosing to remain victims for the rest of our natural life. I decided that living in the fear of the unknown enhanced the fear of intimacy and therefore would limit any potential sadness or heartbreak. However, the best way we can bond and build relationships, thereby experiencing true intimacy, is to share personal and or common experiences. Perversely, couples form closer bonds when they struggle and survive trying times. In circumstances of stress, including natural disasters and terrorism, people reduce their personal boundaries and accept class divisions, particularly around the time of 9/11. New York City residents who greeted one another on the street were more considerate and sensitive to one another. They were gentler than normal. Stress prepares the body for resistance. It may also be the opportunity to experience beautiful things in life, such as connection, love, and happiness, without struggle or some element of stress. Happiness could not be measured. Pain is a part of life. We can try and prevent pain by protecting ourselves, by creating barriers and boundaries based on our decisions on what we do and do not accept from others. If we feed our fears created from our previous experiences, we may continue to live in a state of worry. And this worry contributes to the barriers we have built to protect ourselves against similar events repeating in the future. And these are conscious choices. We can either increase our suffering by creating barriers and building walls, or we can deal with the pain. By dealing with the traumas and facing the sadness, we attempt to remain open so we may be able to experience the highs happiness has to offer. This is by far more satisfying than experiencing the middle ground where we hide behind the wall created to block ourselves off from potential hurt. This is all easier said than done. However, we may be scared to try again. After touching a hot pan, we learn not to do it again. These types of traumas and unpleasant feelings are embedded into our psyche. We have learned from past experiences and may have developed a fear of failing. We may get too stubborn to open the new door and conditioned ourselves to dreading deception. Yet each new connection you make and person you meet is different to your experiences. Having this level of awareness of the pervading effect of previous events brings light into some potentially rigid thoughts you have been adhering to. This awareness is essential before you are able to change your attitude towards it. Many people are likely unaware of their personal self-sabotages within themselves and within their relationships, which may cause them to potentially withdraw from experiencing a fuller, happier life. And before we can change anything, we must first acknowledge the existence of what needs changing. Identifying what we are afraid of means taking some time to be quiet and seek answers within ourselves. This can be accomplished through personal reflection, and the objective is to listen and understand what you are truly feeling about a particular situation or circumstance. Clarity becomes easier when we are given space and silence. If you are compassionate to yourself and are non-judgmental, this can be an invaluable in seeking solace within yourself. For me, this space became a time to enter openly and honestly. And it was within this space I could understand what I was afraid of. And then I could recognize what it was I truly wanted. When you start this method, ensure you are free from judgment. Seek to understand yourself as if you are sitting opposite your best friend who is going through a personal struggle. This reflective practice may allow you to become aware of something you may not have realized was affecting you. Using moments of silence, stillness, meditation will guide you to look inwards, assess what you may be feeling, and delve deeper into your intuition. Personally, this pathway gave me a chance to understand the reasons why I was blocking people out and why I was truly afraid of connecting. When I was able to confront those feelings from my past experiences, I could take steps to overcome them. So here are some questions I want you to answer within a safe space. Are you able to sit alone with your thoughts without judgment and acknowledge what you are feeling right now? What are you most afraid of? How can you lean into this pain and accept it for what it is? If you feel anxiety or depression, you are not in the present. You are either anxiously projecting the future or depressed and stuck in the past. The only thing you have any control over is the present moment, by Toby Hansen. Being immersed within the present moment meant I could feel joy, security, peace, contentment, no matter what I was doing. However, this feeling was scarce, and negativity or overthinking often took away from my experiences. I'd face what I can only describe as emotional tsunamis. I'd get angry and extremely frustrated when things did not go to plan or how I expected them to be. Eventually, I learned how to calm those tsunamis into waves. Much of that awareness was from inner reflections, seeing these examples from those whom I kept within my inner circle. When I realized I could experience happiness in such fleeting moments, I also understood it wavered depending upon the situation. This realization allowed me to reflect and question, how can these momentary bursts of happiness become more consistent? How could I be happy now, despite my surroundings? And my aim was to find out how I could elongate these joyful experiences. If I could feel good for no reason in particular, how could this state be enhanced and occur more frequently? If we can understand that our feelings and thoughts come in and out of our mind, much like waves within each moment of each day, how can we ease the intensity of those waves, particularly when the weather changes into a storm? When there is chaos going around you, it could be easy to become frustrated, angry, upset. These are common emotions and feelings. My awareness developed by observing what my common reactions were and then exploring why I was feeling those emotions. I'd come to understand that the only thing we are in control of is our emotions and actions. Amongst the chaos, we tend to think we have no control, when in fact, it is still within us. We have to choose our attitude, and we get to choose our actions. Having pressing situations that need to be dealt with immediately need not take away your inner happiness about yourself or life in general. Yet during turbulent times, we succumb to negative state of mind, and it feeds on our insecurities, anxieties, and fears. How can you replace those thoughts and emotions during the eye of the storm? Remain calm, under control, and take those relevant actions instead of reacting to events around you. As women, we've been told we can have it all, we can do anything, and we can have everything we've wanted, but I don't believe this to be true. I do believe we can have it all, but not all at once. I believe each of us has to make sacrifices in order to get what we want. When I wanted to succeed in my career, I'd willingly make sacrifices in my personal relationships. I choose to be less social and disconnect with friends, and I would be terribly picky about whom I'd spend my time with. This enabled me to succeed in my business and career and build a foundation, but I know those sacrifices, without them, I would not be where I am today. I know women who had to go back to work sooner than they would have preferred after the birth of their child. One of my dear friends was torn between being the sole provider for her family and staying at home with her 2 young boys. The sacrifice she made was time spent with her boys in order to provide them with what they needed: a stable home and a fruitful future. I also know plenty of successful male coaches, engineers, managers who have sacrificed time with their loved ones because of the sport they are in. It could be football, rugby, or F1. Their working schedules were grueling and all-consuming. It most certainly affected the relationships they had with their wives, partners, and children. We may have a life filled with challenges and turmoil. We may also need to make sacrifices in order to experience delayed gratification. But it's up to us where we find our happiness. There is a clear distinction between happiness obtained from things and happiness we feel from within. Having things we want, either right now or in the future, takes certain levels of sacrifice. Some may believe accruing material items will make them happier, and for a short while this may be true, but some may feel happier chatting to a friend, eating ice cream, watching funny videos online. But these are just momentary bursts of happiness. They exist, and they are fleeting. Television, social media, shopping, and sex are all examples of immediate pleasures. It is said, true happiness does not come from accomplishment or things, but that is in the journey you have taken to get there. Therefore, if happiness is found in the journey, how can we find happiness in the mundane, the ordinary, and within each day? How can we cultivate awe in the everyday? When you find joy, happiness, and the simple pleasures stated above, they are short-lived. Gratification from superficial means such as compliment from a stranger or likes on social media is reliant on an external source. This means that when individuals experience happiness, highs that do not originate from within, there is likely to be an experience of parallel lows when faced with negative exchanges. Place yourself in a situation where your friend told their mum, sister, or friend does not like you. How would you feel? How about if you posted something on social media platform and received a ton of backlash? What happens to your state of happiness? If you were trying to help someone at work and they came back blaming you for a bad outcome, perhaps even telling other people not to trust you, what emotions would arise within you? If people cling to happiness brought by simple pleasures of external sources, there is a chance their experience of happiness is dependent on a specific outcome. The issue most people struggle with is accepting that outcomes are not within your control. Instead, by recognizing and understanding your current needs, wants, and desires will allow yourself the ability to reflect on where your intentions lie. But you have to be honest with yourself. Otherwise, you won't uncover the meaning behind your actions. Beneath the inward reflection of this journey of self-discovery towards your personal happiness, you will uncover your own personal levels of happiness, as well as how you can replicate it, despite everything going on around you. They say a person needs just 3 things to be truly happy in this world: someone to love, something to do, and something to hope for. By Tom Bodett. Now, whenever I recall moments of happiness in my life, I realize they were always etched into my memory because of times I was truly in the present moment. It could be that we are asking the wrong question. Martin Seligman suggests, instead of asking, "How can I be happy?" we must first make a distinction between what pleasure is and what gratification means to you. Eventually, I was able to experience or even cultivate completely uncontrived moments of pure happiness. Moments that were not manifested because there was a moment, an occasion, or good news that put me into a state of fulfillment. It would be an experience of delight, peace, happiness, being in the moment and enjoying my surroundings. An example was when I would be driving to work. Within this everyday task, I took in the journey. I observed the things around me and began to be mindful of those experiences. And these things, such as the sun rays seeping through the window screen, kissing my skin with a warm glow, or taking in the subtle dance between the tree leaves as they hummed to their own beat, sung by the summer breeze. The music from the radio would caress my heart and soul, or sometimes I would be taking in the silence within the surroundings on my drive before I would begin my workday. What I did not know back then was that those moments were created by habits I would use in the future. I could draw in my surroundings and allow it to ground me in that moment. Within those moments, nothing else mattered. My attention stayed present and I experienced joy and happiness. Take a moment on this section, time to consider. Find a quiet place to sit and reflect how you are feeling. Get a notebook and pen and write down anything that comes up. When I first began writing, it helped me navigate the circumstances in my day. I tended to write whenever I felt called to. As the years progressed, I used gratitude as the main theme and practiced intention setting to guide my writing. Sometimes I would set an intention for the following day. Another method is to simply listen to your heart and let your fingers hover over the keyboard. Over time, I found typing on the laptop kept up with the pace of my thoughts. Write what you are feeling. There is no right or wrong way. Each day may bring you different lessons, and this is a way to access and find clarity around your thoughts and feelings in a judgment-free zone. It may happen straight away, or it may take a few days. I suggest you repeat this exercise every day for 14 days, and this is simple observational exercise and must be written down, because you will most likely forget on day 8 what you felt on day 1, similar to how people will not be able to tell you what they ate 14 days ago. The key to this exercise is to be patient with yourself. While some things may be obvious, the process of writing things down can bring up things you had not thought of before. Putting things on paper or writing on the computer will gain you access to another perspective and understand what your personal process is. This will provide clarity. A client once assured me that they did this exercise but not write things down. But the purpose of the notebook and placing the pen to paper means you are unlikely to go through a distracting thought cycle. Once you write things down, you will begin to clarify your thoughts. Whereas when you ruminate, your thoughts can remain fragmented and scattered. You will be able to identify patterns, see connections, externalize thoughts in order to create a healthy distance and allow them to form tangible observations rather than get caught up in your emotions. Writing things down is also therapeutic, particularly when emotions can be complex and overwhelming. You may also begin to write pros and cons, a reference point in which you can revisit and foster personal growth as well as self-awareness over time. Once you have written your thoughts and feelings down, you are able to see it from a different perspective. The written format enables you to pause, reread, and reflect. Thoughts may become erratic, and they may often lead you to attaching yourself to other thoughts or new ideas. They can distract you from the purpose of the activity. Think of thoughts being similar to clouds in the sky. You observe them as they pass by. The purpose is to clarify your interpretation and enable you to develop your thought process on a subject. Identify things that may cause you feelings of unhappiness or upset, as well as feelings of elation or joy. You may be someone who blocks chances for emotional intimacy in relationships. It could be within friends or romantic partnerships. Identify your thoughts moves you closer to what you want. I used to have thoughts that I didn't want a relationship, that I was happy or fine on my own. To some degree, this was true, but the awareness and self-reflection gave me the comprehension that the underlying reason I kept using was actually a lie. And it became a mere excuse to block people out from being close to me. The use of journaling, enabled me to release any hesitations and reflections upon my innermost personal desires. It is important not to judge yourself in the moment of pure vulnerability and acknowledge the space you have created to be open and honest with yourself. The final point is that delving deeper into your desires does not mean you need to take action just yet. This is a simple method to raise your awareness into things that may be troubling you, things you may have resisted in order to stay in that unproductive middle ground and reduce your state of happiness. If you're new to journaling, you may find this exercise useful. Grab a pen and paper and write down answers to these questions on the following page. What does happiness look like to you? What brings you joyful moments that do not last long, such as short-term pleasures? What brings you content and happiness when you look outside of yourself, i.e. gratification? Which things bring you happiness during the day? What are you gratefully happy about in your life today? And finally, what does happiness mean to you? Feel free to go back to these questions. In time, it may be the turning point you need to realize everything you need and want is around the corner, but only once you are honest about what that really means to you. Thank you so much for being here and listening to that chapter 2. I'm so excited for you to delve deeper. And if you found this entertaining and you really want more chapters being read at Storytime, let me know. And thank you so much for joining me. Have an amazing day. I'll see you next time.